How do you compare financially to the rest of America? So in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, we're going to look at the BLS report from 2022, the Consumer Expenditure Survey. I don't think they have the 2023 up yet. They might. I don't think so. So this could be the most recent one that I could find in terms of the details that we have here. And we're going to show you. This is very interesting. Tons of tidbits in this thing, man. I'm telling you. So it'd be very interesting. So check this out. What they do. Income before taxes. Income. So tattoo that on your head because I want to go back to that here in just a second. Shares of annual expenditures and sources of income. Consumer Expenditure Survey 2022. And you can see they break them down to income categories. Less than 15,000, 15 to 29, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, so on and so on. And here's the highest at 200,000 or more. Interestingly enough, basically 10% of the population, and they surveyed 134,000 consumer units, households. 10% of this population had income of less than $15,000. 10% of the population also had income more than $200,000. Excuse me. Very interesting. I thought that was kind of interesting. The median is right about there, right about $80,000. All right. So all these people here are on the left side of the median. All these people here on the right side of the median. But notice 15.5%, the biggest population, was between 100 and 150,000. So basically 29%, and we'll say 30% was between the $70,000 and $150,000 income category. I find that very interesting. In fact, look at that. That's the median right there. Was that you? Are you at the median? About 80,000? Anyways, keep going because it was very interesting here. You can see income before taxes on the poor people, $7,600. Income after taxes, $9,800. What? So income before taxes here for the rich people, $322. Income after taxes for the rich people, $250. And yet both these categories, in fact, all these categories right here, from $50,000 and below, had more income after taxes than they had before because of credits and things of that nature. Again, being poor on paper is pretty significant. I just want to push this out because remember, when it says income, let me ask you a question. Let's say you sold your house and you proceed $500,000. Your net proceeds were $500,000. And we'll just say you dump that into the savings account. Over the course of the next 10 years, you're pulling $50,000 a year from that savings account out to live on, just for simplicity. Would you consider that $50,000 income? And the answer is unequivocally no. It's not. You would not. It doesn't go in your 1040. The interest that you get off the $500,000 would be income. But the amount of money you receive from those, essentially the cash distributions from ultimately the sale of your home, you're not going to consider income. You're not. That's the whole premise about the poor on paper. Because if you take it a Roth, a return of principal in a Roth IRA, you're not going to call it income. You're not even going to call Roth distribution income either because it's tax-free. You're just not going to do that. You're not going to say, oh, I got income coming from Roth. You're not. You're going to have distributions, but you're not going to call it income. And this is the interesting thing here. This is considered income. And poor on paper says if you're looking poor on paper, you actually get child credits back that you might not otherwise have qualified for. Now, these people are paying them. Theoretically, I don't think anyone's really paying them. I mean, they're paying taxes, but they're really going from here to there. No. But anyway, you can see right here, we want you to be poor on paper to qualify for the government benefits that you're entitled to. Why should the illegal immigrants or even any immigrants get all these things? It's crazy. Oh, but Josh, they're going to bankrupt the country. They're already bankrupting the country. You might as well get it. It's your hell, dude. You've been paying taxes all day long. Since you're freaking 12 years old, 13 years old. I think my first job was being a paper boy. I don't even know if I had to pay taxes then. I'm not sure. But anyway, did you have to pay FICA? I don't know. Maybe y'all know. Did you have to pay FICA on your paper route income? I don't know. But anyway, the point being is, dude, don't tell me when everyone else is freaking taking advantage of the system. That's the thing that pissed me off about America right now. It's like, come on in, abuse our country, and then leave. Screw that, dude. Anyway, let's keep going here. So check this out. I found this very interesting. Age of reference person. So the poor people, the ages are 55, 60, 55, 53. The younger you get, the more money you have. Or I should say, the more money you have, the younger you get. 60, 55, 53, 50, 48, 48, 48, 48, and 49. Isn't that interesting? The older you are, the less income you have. In fact, even more interesting, here's 1.6, 1.7 people per consumer unit. And if we come over here, it's twice that. So the people making more money are younger, and they have twice the size of the family size as the people making less money who are older. What does that tell you? These people are in their primo earning years raising families. And when they get older, they have less income because they have less people, and they're older. They're not spending as much. Now, let's keep going here. You want to get blown away? Right here. $15,000 to $30,000. That had the biggest amount of homeowners that did not have a mortgage. 38% of this group of people, the poor people, had a home without a mortgage. Only 19% of the rich people had a home without a mortgage. Isn't that interesting? Yes, sir, it is. In fact, 27% of the most impoverished, less than $15,000, had a home without a mortgage. 35% of the people making 30 to 40 had a home without a mortgage. Interesting. Again, you can see right here, the number of people that had a home without a mortgage, it went down the more income you had. What's that about? Well, it just shows us people get older, they have less income, but their houses are paid off. They don't need as much income. Interesting. Now, this right here is very interesting. So remember, less than 15,000, 10% of the population is less than 15,000, but they only consumed 5% of the total expenditure on food. These people were 10% of the population, and they consumed 19% of the expenditure on food. Why? Because they have more kids and they're younger. They're younger, they have more kids. They're older with less kids. Where I'm going with this here, I'm saying that at the end of the day, the older you get, the less income you need. It's just that simple. And by the way, why? You have less people in your house and you have less with a mortgage. Now, you'll see the significant right here amount of people. There's a significant amount of people right here. The majority of the people less than 15,000 rent. Yeah, we don't want that to be you. And so you can see the number of renters goes down as your income goes up, for sure. The number of homeowners actually goes up as their income goes up, too. It's just a lot of those homeowners have a mortgage. So if you're not renting, or if you even, but even right here, the people making 15 to 30,000, even right here, the majority of people don't rent. 53% own a home, of which 38%, which is the vast majority, the 2/3 of that 53%, not only own a home, they own the home outright. Same thing here. Interesting. Let's keep going. Housing cost. All right, so here's housing cost. This category, less than 15,000, represents 10% of the population, and yet they only spend 5% of the aggregate for the entire country on housing. These people right here were how much of the population? Were 14% of the population, and they only spend 8.3 on housing. These people right here were 8.4% of the housing. They only spend 6.1. Why? Because their houses are paid off. These people right here were 10% of the population. They spend 20% of the housing expenditure for the entirety of the survey here. Interesting. Why? Because they're carrying a mortgage. Probably a big fat mortgage too, because they're probably living in nicer, fancier houses because they're making the money. Now, you will see the number of expenditures on rent is high for these lower categories, and that's not good. That's probably going to be younger people, and I'll show you what else it is. But for you who watch this channel, these aren't you. These are just, they're going to be some poor. The poor will always be with us. That's not you, though. You're just not sitting there like freaking, 8 kids and living in a Section 8 house. You're just not. But they do rent more. So there's a pretty big dichotomy here between the homeowners and the poor people and the renters. You got both. You got both sides. You got older homeowners who have no debt, and you have people who rent as well, who are at lower income, and they're probably getting Section 8 housing again. Yeah, let's keep going. I find that very interesting. Check this out. Mortgage interest and charges. Only 1.9% of the poorest people in this survey are expenditure on mortgage. Right here, it's 26.7. Right here, 30, right there, 30%. So the entirety of the expenditures of this surveyed people, 30% of mortgage expenditures goes to the wealthiest. Isn't that interesting? Even though they represent only 10% of the population. Why? Because they have a debt. Again, because these places are paid off. Property tax. Only 3.1, 6.3, 5% of property tax are represented by these people right here, the poor people. 27.1% of the total expenditures for property tax on the surveyed people are from these people right here, the wealthy, even though they represent only 10% of the population. Crazy. Transportation costs, vehicle finance charges, 2.7, 4.8, 4.8 of the total expenditure, 18.7, 12.9, 21, 16.4. The younger you are, the more income you have, the more your finance charge happens. So what happens to these people once the vehicles are paid off? That finance charge goes away. What happens to these people once the mortgage is paid off? That mortgage interest goes away. The property tax will probably stay, but the mortgage interest goes away. Pretty sneaky, sis, isn't it? You sunk my battleship. I just find that very interesting. All those finance charges, they're not there perpetually, that's for sure. In fact, you can see the older people with no mortgage, the older people also, and the older people with the less income also have less finance charges as well, in terms of the overall aggregate here. Entertainment. 25% of the cost for entertainment is here. Only 3.2% of the cost for entertainment is there. 5.6, 5.3. Why? Because these people are living on more steady income, fixed income, and they're probably getting old enough they don't want to go outside and go see friggin', I don't know, whatever, the friggin' New York Knicks play. You know what I'm saying? Not that they can afford it anyway. They're like, not important to me. I want to go. These guys are. Personal care and products. 19% goes here. Where I'm going with this, my friends, is the discretionary income the wealthier people have. All right. If you're going to use a financial planning method that says I need to retain that kind of level of discretionary income in my retirement years, I'd say, what's that based on what? When you factor in, are you really going to spend so much on personal care and products when you're retired? Are you really going to spend so much on vehicle expenses when you're retired? Home and mortgage interest expense when you're retired? The answer is unequivocally no. And finally, so those people say the poor, they can't feed themselves. They got 26% of all SNAP is going to the poor. 22%, 10%. None are going to the wealthy. Isn't that interesting? Oddly enough, of other income, 13.7, 15% are going to the two poorest categories. I'm not sure what the other income qualifies for. I just find that very interesting. Wages. A third of the wages on this survey go to the top 10% here. I thought that was pretty interesting. A third of the wages, yep. And they get a half of the dividends interest right there. Interest, dividends, rental income, and other property income. They get half of that. So they get a third of the taxes, a third of the income, but they're paying 67% of the taxes, actually, and after tax, right there, 73% of the federal taxes. They get a third of the income, they're paying 73% of the taxes. That's kind of interesting. They're paying 50% of state and local taxes and 23% of other taxes. So you can see right here, they get a third of the income, but after taxes, only keeping 30%. I mean, it sucks to be, but still, at the end of the day, these people actually, income before taxes, 0.8, income after taxes, 1.2. So these people got a 50% boost in income after taxes because of child credits and refundable and all that stuff, credits. Anyway, I find that interesting. So the top 10% of the population makes $200,000 or more. However, where we want to be is kind of like right in here. If we could be less than $50,000 of income, that's where we want to be in retirement, dude. I'm telling you right there. That is the retirement holy grail. All right, how do you compare? Where are you in terms of all this right here? Love to hear it. So smash and tell me your thoughts in the comment section. See ya.